Hi everyone, this is Erica with BreckCreate. I am an instructor on campus here. I'm an herbalist, and so I teach herbal medicine making workshops. I primarily teach courses in the summertime when we have our medicinal herb garden growing, but right now I'm teaching some medicinal herb workshops that you can do from home while we're all socially distancing. So my goal here is to create classes that you can do at home using ingredients that are available locally. So in this case, all of the ingredients were purchased at Natural Grocers from their bulk herb section. They have a plethora of dried herbs that you can purchase, and so we're using ingredients from that store. So our class today is an elderberry syrup workshop. I'm teaching you how to make an elderberry syrup, and this is basically a concentrated tea to which we're adding sugar. We're adding a sweetener. So we're starting out with a large quantity of water, herbs that we're simmering together in a pot, and then we're reducing that down. We're straining out the herbs, and we're saving that concentrated tea, and to that we're adding sugar just so it can stay shelf stable. What I mean by shelf stable is that you can leave it out on your countertop for about 2 weeks, or put it in the refrigerator to keep it around a little bit longer, and then you only take between a teaspoon and a tablespoon of that a day, and you can mix it with hot water to dilute it into a tea, or you can just take it as a shot if you want. It tastes really good, so I like to take it as tea, but we're only using a small amount of this concentrate that we're creating, and we're diluting it when we're actually consuming it. So the ingredients that we're using are elderberry. You can either use hawthorne or rose hips, and they're both available at Natural Grocers. And then we're using mushrooms. So I have reishi mushrooms, but they also have maitake mushrooms, shiitake mushrooms, or cordyceps would all be good to use. And then finally we're adding a spice. So your spice could be cinnamon, it could be ginger, it could be cardamom, it could be cloves, or it could be any of those. This is really like a kitchen sink type of remedy, meaning you can pull from what you have, or you can make it according to your taste preferences. But the main herb that we want to include is elderberry. This is an elderberry syrup. And so elderberry is the fruit from the elderberry shrub, and it grows throughout North America and Europe. There's a lot of different species of elderberry. We even have some growing wild here. But the most palatable and the safest type to use is what they carry at Natural Grocers, and that's Sambucus nigra, and that's the black elderberry. And this is what you typically see on the shelf when you see an elderberry syrup on the shelf at the store. So the reason that we want to work with elderberry is that it's very supportive to the immune system. So it's a good thing to take kind of throughout the winter months, throughout flu season, to keep your immune system healthy. And it has antiviral activity, and it also is a very strong antioxidant. So one of the things that happens when a cold or a flu enter into our bodies is that our body produces these cytokines, or this inflammatory response. Our immune system really goes kind of haywire trying to combat this foreign pathogen. And so it can create this cascade of inflammatory responses, and that's what really makes us feel not well. That's what gives us the aches and the sniffles, and the headache and the fever. This is all the inflammatory response that our immune system employs to try to combat this pathogen. So the elderberry and the other ingredients in this elixir help our body to mitigate that response, kind of make it more comfortable for us, and also help us to fight off this pathogen. And in the first place, it also strengthens our immune system so that we're less likely to have this sort of negative response when we do come in contact with these pathogens. So it's something that this syrup, it's meant to be something that's very palatable. It's nice to take throughout the, for many months at a time. It tastes good. You're going to want to take it. You're going to want to ingest it because it tastes good. So in addition to the elderberry, we want to add something that has a lot of vitamin C. And the best way for you to get vitamin C is actually through food. It's not through the ascorbic acid powder. It's through a whole food. So you can use any number of things. There are a lot of different super fruits that you can find out there on the market right now. There's camu, there's cherries, there's rose hips. What I'm going to use is hawthorne. Hawthorne is a member of the rose family, and this is the berry that's produced. It's a shrub, so it's very similar to rose hips in that sense. It's also red in color, and we're also getting those antioxidants, the nutrients, the bright colors. Any kind of bright colored fruit is going to be high in antioxidants. So again, this helps with the inflammatory response in the body, and it gives us vitamin C, which also bolsters our immune system. And then to that, we want to add mushrooms. So mushrooms have beta glucans, and that helps to support the immune system as well. So the mushroom that I chose for this syrup is reishi, but you could also use any different type of medicinal mushroom that you see. The ones that aren't as medicinal and they're more culinary mushrooms are going to be the cremini mushrooms, the portobellos, the white button mushrooms. Those don't have as high an activity of the beta glucans. So choose something like reishi or maitake mushroom, cordyceps. Those are all good to use. And then finally, we're going to add a spice. And the purpose of the spice is to help this medicine to spread throughout the body. So when you think of a spice like cinnamon or ginger or cardamom, you know that they're warming and they're stimulating and they're diffusive, meaning they spread throughout the body, which feels really good if you have a cold or you have a flu and you have that achy, stiff feeling. You want this warming component. So I'm using cinnamon, but you could also use ginger or cardamom. Those are nice too, and they also help it taste great. So we want to make sure that whatever herbs we're choosing, they're in their whole form and they're dried. So it's not as easy to make this if you're using a powdered herb, because we need to strain all of this. Once we're done cooking it, we need to strain it, and we're going to discard the herb, and we're just going to drink the tea that we made. If you're using a powdered herb, it becomes a lot more difficult to strain, and you don't really want to have any sediment left in this tea, because that interferes with its shelf stability. If there's some powder, some sediment that kind of settles to the bottom, it's more likely that your syrup is gonna go bad. So make sure that you can strain this completely so you don't have any herbs left. All of the herbs are being cooked into the water. So when we're done cooking it, the herbs should almost be opaque, especially the elderberry and the rosehip or the hawthorne berry. The really brightly colored berries that we're using, they should give all of those nutrients to the water. And so so you can check and make sure before you strain that your berries have become soft and that they lost their color. All that color goes into the water, basically. So the recipe that we're using today, we're starting out with 6 cups of filtered water, 1 cup of elderberries, 1 cup of hawthorne berries, 2 cinnamon sticks, and I used about 6 pieces of reishi mushroom. The reishi mushroom comes in slices like this. This is the reishi. Cinnamon sticks, you've all seen before. And then the hawthorne, these are the dried hawthorne berries. So when they're not cooked, they're hard. And then the elderberries are a lot smaller. Again, they're hard when they're not cooked. So these are the black elderberries. So you're gonna take a saucepan and you're just gonna combine all of those ingredients, the 6 cups of water, all of your herbs are gonna go together on the saucepan on the stove, and you're gonna bring it up to a boil. So once you reach that boiling point, then you wanna turn the heat down and you want to let it simmer for about 2 hours. So this slow simmering action, we have this mechanical bubbling. The mechanical bubbling is going to be one of the methods by which we extract the medicinal properties out of the herbs. It's just the physical aspect of that. So you want to let it simmer. And then also the heat and the hot water. So the water acts as a solvent. The water extracts all of the medicinal components out of these fruits and these ingredients as well. So in 2 hours time, you should reduce your water from 6 cups down to 2 cups. You should only have about 2 cups left after 2 hours. And a way to tell is that you'll see a rim around the saucepan from your water line from where you started, because the water is going to be colored, and then down to about 1/3 of what you had. So from 6 cups down to 2 cups basically is what we want to be left with. So after 2 hours, I have all of my ingredients in my saucepan, and you can see this nice color here that we have. So this is the reishi mushroom, hawthorne berry, elderberry, and cinnamon sticks are in here. And as you can see, I'm not left with that much water, but you can kind of see the water line that I started with. So it took me 2 hours to reduce this. And that reduction process basically just concentrates it. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this down here. And then what we wanna do is strain the herbs. So what you're gonna need is cheesecloth, and again, you can purchase this at Natural Grocers, and you want a good strainer, so you just set the cheesecloth over the strainer, because again, we don't want to get any herbs into our water. Once we strain it out, we just want the water left. And I have a mixing bowl that has a spout, so this will make it easier to pour into my mason jar for storage. So we just set the strainer on top of the measuring cup, our mixing bowl here. And then we're gonna pour all of this herbal goodness out. And you can see that dark color, that's all the nutrients from the plant, all of the antioxidants. And we want to try to extract as much as we can. So what I like to do is take the back of a mixing spoon and squeeze all the herbs down. I don't like to use my hands unless I'm wearing gloves because I don't want to introduce any bacteria, any microbes that may be living on my hands into the syrup. I want to try to keep it as clean as possible, and that'll extend the shelf life. And you'll notice as you're pushing down on these herbs, they're all soft now, and that's because they've all been cooking for so long. So they're no longer, you know, dry and hard like they were before we started. So really try to get as much out of this, as much liquid out of this as you can. Takes a little time. Okay, so I'm just gonna set that aside. And here, okay, so I have about 1 cup. There's a little bit more here in the pot. So just in the interest of keeping this streamlined, we'll just work with, we have 1 cup here of the elderberry syrup. And so now we want to add our sweetener. And so one of the purposes of the sweetener, for one thing, it soothes the throat. So if you have a sore throat, a sweetener will help with that. Something like honey is really the preferred choice for that. But for preservation, pure cane sugar is the best preservative if you want to leave it on your countertop. If you're putting it in the refrigerator, go ahead and use honey. It's not as strong as a preservative, but it is really nice for the throat. Something that you can just keep on your countertop, I would use white sugar, pure cane sugar. And the ratio that you want is 2 cups of this tea to 1 cup of sugar, or in this case I have 1 cup of the tea, so I'll just use half a cup of sugar. So it's a 2-to-1 ratio, 2 parts tea, 1 part sugar. Okay, so I'm gonna add my sugar here. So I have this pre-measured. I'm gonna put in half of a cup. I know it seems like a lot and we want to be healthy and moderate our sugar intake, but for this this syrup we really need the sugar for the preservation and also for the throat soothing properties. So now I'm just mixing the sugar, and as you do this, it will take on that syrup texture. It'll become more viscous. So we just keep mixing as the tea is still pretty warm from when I cooked it, so that helps the sugar to dissolve. Just gonna add a little bit more. Let the sugar really dissolve in there. And you'll notice that syrupy texture, that syrupy consistency. And it's going to taste really good too. So now we're just going to pour this into a clean mason jar. So make sure all of your kitchen equipment is clean, and that will also help with your preservation, so you can leave it out on the countertop and not worry about it going off. But you can also keep it in your refrigerator, and that'll extend the shelf life. Okay, so now I have this delicious elderberry syrup. and we can take it during cold and flu season throughout the winter months, and it tastes great. So what I like to do is have about 1 tablespoon of this syrup a day in 1 cup of hot water. And if you feel a sore throat, or if you feel some symptoms coming on, you can certainly increase that dose to about 3 tablespoons a day. So 1 tablespoon per 1 cup of water, take it 3 times a day. I've also seen it mixed in with different alcoholic drinks, so you can get creative with how you want to use it. I've also seen elderberry syrup used in baking, so it is a sweetener. You can add it into your baked dishes, and that's another great way to get your medicine in. But this is sort of a simple staple item to have in your pantry. Just take some time just cooking it on the stove, and then you'll have something that's really affordable and really tasty to take. So thank you for watching. You can keep up with BreckCreate on Instagram or Facebook, and keep an eye out for more workshops as they come up. And happy medicine making.